If you've been following my stuff with the Miyoo Mini Plus, you know that I've been using it as my go-to Pokemon machine for diving into the world of DS Pokemon games. Now that's my personal preference. But what about the classics? Pokemon Blue, Fire Red, and the others? Today we're putting the Miyoo Mini Plus to the test to find out if it's not just a DS Pokemon powerhouse, but also the ideal device for your nostalgic Pokemon adventures. So here's our lineup: Pokemon Red, Silver, Fire Red, Emerald, Platinum, Heart Gold, and Black 2. So it's time for us to fire up Pokemon Red. So good thing about the Miyoo Mini Plus is that it organizes your games by the system. So we want a GB game, there we are. So don't mind this green filter, we're gonna talk about that later. That's an overlay, we can change that. For now I'm gonna leave it as is because it's a green filter, it's charming. So there we are. I'm gonna create a new game real quick. Also, for you guys who like the original aspect ratio of the screen, you can change it by pressing main button and then start. So you can pick whichever suits you better. I'm gonna leave the full screen because I think most people are gonna prefer to play it this way. Hello, Professor Oak. I know all of this. Alright, I'm just gonna pick my first Pokemon and then we're gonna talk about turbo buttons. That's a cool thing that we have on the Miyoo Mini Plus. Turbo buttons. Instead of repeatedly pressing A, you can just hold the X button. Because RetroArch, I think that for Game Boy, it has by default this configuration. Also, pressing the main button plus R, you can activate the fast forward mode. Also, main button X activates the FPS counter. So we're having this extremely high FPS because we have the fast forward option turned on. So now we can just press X and repeatedly use the same attack over and over again, and then we die. I don't think that any of you is seriously considering playing any retro Pokemon game without the fast forward option. For more cheap devices like the Pocket A30, this doesn't have fast forward, and I know that lots and lots of you guys chose not to buy one because of that. So we have it here. We can also save states at any point of the game by pressing main button and then R2, and we can load it with main button L2. So it pretty much goes like this. If we save the state, let me turn the FPS off. So if we save the state, we're gonna have this message here, and then I'm gonna change the pointer. We can load it, and then we go all the way back. And for some reason, we lost our filter. That's weird. Speaking of filters, pressing the main button and then select takes us to the quick menu, and here we can pick the on-screen overlays. And I could make a whole video about that. But to be simple, just add overlay preset, and here you can pick between lots of screen overlays. For now, I'm gonna turn all of those off and just play the game as is. So this is it. I don't have much more to talk about Pokemon Red. You have extremely high FPS count, so you can play your game pretty quickly because the Miyoo Mini Plus can handle this kind of performance. This is pretty much raw emulation for Game Boy. So now note that we have an FPS counting of something like 500-ish or 400 to 500, depends on what scenario we're on. So let's see how Game Boy Color performs compared to this. This is Pokemon Silver. I already have a save for that, so as soon as I don't save any states, I'm gonna be good to go, I hope. So let me restart the game and create a new save file. Talking about time, the Miyoo Mini Plus doesn't know what time it is. It doesn't have an internal clock. So the best you can do is go to RetroArch apps and then set a time previously before playing. Now, every time you leave the game and then you come back, the Miyoo Mini Plus adds 4 hours between each time you open up the game. So that's the best you can get. This is by far the worst part of playing Pokemon games on the Miyoo Mini Plus because it doesn't have an RTC, which is a real-time clock. It's dumb that they put a vibration motor in here, because if you press the main button to change games, you can feel it vibrating. So they added a vibration motor that doesn't do anything in any game at all, only when you're messing around with the operating system interface. So that's a dumb decision, and I've never met anyone who doesn't think that, but yeah, you can't do anything. Maybe you could mod it and put an RTC on it. I don't know. So to set the time before you actually play the game, you just go to the main menu, and in here you go to apps, then clock. And now you can quote-unquote tell the Miyoo Mini Plus what time it is and what day it is. I just think it's too much work, and you should only do it if you want, like, let's say a certain Pokemon that only shows up on Fridays, or I don't know, something like that. So we also have screen overlays for Game Boy Color. So let's say so let's try this one with a grid. That's pretty cool. So here it kind of emulates the old panels we had in games. So actually I'm gonna fit the screen here, and I'm gonna play like that for a bit. So I'm gonna pick my first poke. So I'm sorry all of you, I'm sorry, but there's no way I'm picking any Pokemon that's not my boy Cyndaquil. Turning FPS counter on, we can see that's just slightly worse than Game Boy. Goes from 400-ish, and that's it. Let's see if it changes during combat. Yeah, it's a bit slower than Game Boy. I don't think that's a huge deal by any means, but it's slightly slower. Well, so I think you're gonna have a hugely awesome experience here, just as you would have with the Game Boy. Now, how does the Game Boy Advance compares to these guys? This is Pokemon Fire Red. So in here we can also change the on-screen overlay. We have the following screen aspect ratios that we can pick from. I would play it full screen, but you can either do that or leave the original aspect ratio and then just pick an on-screen overlay that matches the system you're using, in this case the Game Boy Advance. I'm gonna just turn it off. For my surprise, the FPS is just straight up way slower than any of those. Originally, the game runs at a 60 FPS rate, but if you turn fast forward on, it only goes up to 100. I'm not sure if you can change any option in the settings screen, but this is way slower than what I expected it to be. That's a big deal. Here you can't really use the fast forward, and what's weird is that it actually is way slower than the DS games, which are supposed to be harder to emulate. I don't know, I'm just gonna have to compare it to Pokemon Emerald later on. Okay, I did a quick Google, and apparently we can change the Game Boy Advance core emulator in the options tab. Just open the GBA emulator, and in here press Y, and now you just change the game core from MGBA to GBSP. This supposedly runs way faster. Now we're talking. Now we're having something up to 250. So if you're intending to play GBA Pokemon games on the Miyoo Mini Plus, don't forget to change the core from MGBA to GBSP. This is literally gonna make all the difference. Let's see how this compares to Pokemon Emerald now. So once again, I do recommend you to turn your grids on, which is gonna emulate the pixel density, or it's pretty much how pixels looked on Game Boys and Game Boy Colors and Advanced. I'm just not turning those on because I'm not sure how you guys are seeing my screen, so that's why I'm not using any filter at all, but I do recommend you guys to try it out. since it's running on the same engine, apparently we have a pretty similar smoothness on Pokemon Emerald. So let's head to the first battle. Let's see if it actually changes anything. And apparently Pokemon Emerald runs a bit smoother than Pokemon Fire Red on the fast forward option. Now leaving that aside, colors are extremely gorgeous on the Miyoo Mini Plus screen. You're not gonna have any problem at all with that. And yeah, not really much to talk about here anymore. Let's jump to DS. Alright, I've said it before and I'm saying it again. This is by far the best layout to play Pokemon games on the DS. Just leave the second screen in here with a bit of an opacity, and you can switch those pressing R2. During fast forward, we're gonna have 250-ish% of speed compared to the original 100%. So this is enough. Let's see how it actually performs during actual gameplay. For some reason, since DS became native on the beta version of Onion OS, actually I've heard that now it's on the stock, not the beta version anymore. That's good, but I'm still running the beta version. Since then, my turbo buttons have stopped working. Now I have to constantly smash the buttons I want, and I hope this was changed in the actual 4.3 version, and I'm gonna try it out later. To change your screen layout, you hold the main button and then you press the left and right arrows. Then you're gonna have several different screen types, but all of them kind of make the screen too small, except for this one. This one's actually kind of good, but it's just a weird layout. I don't usually ever consider using it. You can also use this weird vertical screen, but the orientation of the D-pad doesn't change, so you need to memorize this way of moving it, but actually using it turn right this way, and you can do the opposite as well. Well, as I told you before, this is by far the best one, this one right here, or you can even pick the smaller secondary screen one. If you're able to configure turbo buttons once again, because once again I lost this configuration, if you're able to do so, it does run pretty fast as heck actually. During battle, since there are no 3D elements, it's even able to run faster. Pressing main button select, you can change some options, change some controls. It's kind of a new system for the Miyoo Mini Plus. And pressing main button start, you head to this other menu where you can change like the opacity of the secondary display, etc. But yeah, now DS games are also in the quick menu, so you can still quickly switch between those. On to Pokemon Heart Gold. Actually, this is a Draiano hack ROM. I just think Pokemon Sacred Gold to be the perfect Pokemon experience by any means, so it wouldn't be different at all on the Miyoo Mini Plus. So I'm gonna save my state and then just do a fresh start. So if you just want to play old Pokemon games and have your experience, I would seriously consider checking out Draiano's hack ROMs. Those just make the game more balanced, less childish, in the sense that's just too easy. The game's gonna still be a little bit easy because you have, infinite chances, etc. But Draiano hack ROMs just make the game more balanced and more fun to play. This is Pokemon Sacred Gold. It's good. I recommend it. And there's also for Pokemon Black, which is Blaze Black and Volt White, something like that. And also for older games. I just recommend you to check it out. Well, the main difference between running Pokemon Heart Gold and Pokemon Black and Black 2 is in Black 2 there are way more 3D elements, and even the battle arena is a 3D battle arena. So it's way harder for the Miyoo Mini Plus to render everything. So Heart Gold and Platinum are gonna run way faster than Pokemon Black. That's a golden rule. Here we're having an insane speed for battle scenes, so you're gonna be able to grind pretty fast. It drops down a bit when going to the overworld, but it's still good. Here we are, the toughest challenge of them all. So it's just not as bad as I remember. You could definitely grind with this speed. It's not as fast as Heart Gold by any means. And of course, if you turn it off, you're just gonna have 60 FPS, the 100% speed experience, and it's gonna run fine. You're gonna run every Pokemon game fine. It's everything fine. Except for not being able to actually game in the real time. You know, you have to set the time before actually starting to game, or just ignore it at all and just play. Sometimes it's gonna be day, sometimes it's gonna be night, and that's how life is. Except for that, you can play pretty much every Pokemon title up to Pokemon Black 2 on the Miyoo Mini Plus. It's not gonna be that expensive and you're gonna have tons of fun. If you like my content, please subscribe and I see you in the next video.